Good morning all. I am Usha, working as an assistant professor in the Department of Information Science and Technology in MIT Bangalore. So today we will talk on the data structure concepts. So first, going to what is data structures, we will see what is data. So what do you mean by data? So data can be facts, figures, characters, symbols. So we will see a dictionary definition for data. Data is a quantities, symbols, characters where we can perform the operation in the computer, where we can store the computed data on the system, or we can also transmit the data in the form of signals or magnetic or optical disk. We can also store the data in the different forms. Sometimes we may heard about the word information. We say that data is also a information. So one thing we should know about the information, I have written some characters. So would you get something out of this character, seeing this characters? So this is what we call it as a data, where I can see a series of characters or letters. So when does the data becomes information? This is what the above data has been given a systematic structure, and when I see that systematic structure which has some meaning, information in that data. What is that? My name is Usha. So when I see the data, though it is a character, it is not arranged in a systematic structure. Okay. So what is information? When I arrange the data in a systematic way, it will get a meaningful structure. That is what we call it as a information. So now you understood when does this data becomes a information. So when the data is arranged in a systematic way, the data get a systematic structure. So that is what we call it as a information. So now we have a clarity about the data and the information. So in order to arrange this data in a systematic way, we need something called as a structure. That is what we call it as a data structure. So now, by looking at this information and data, we should know why there is a requirement for this data structure. So what is data structure? Arranging of the data or organizing of the data in a systematic way so that it can be used efficiently. When I talk about efficiency, I'll be going to talk about time and also with respect to the space. So time complexity and also with the space complexity. This is what we call it as a data structure, organizing of the data in a systematic way so that it can be used efficiently. Okay, so next we will see what are the types of data structures. Types of data structure. There are two types of data structure. One is primitive data structure and the another one is non-primitive data structure. So what are the primitive data structure? Primitive data structures are the one which we call it as a fundamental data structure or the built-in data structure. Under primitive data structure, we can see the built-in data types, that is integer, float, double and character. So under non-primitive data structures, we will be having structures, arrays, stack, queues, linked list, etc. Okay, structures. So we will see now this primitive data structure and non-primitive data structures. Under non-primitive data structures, again I will divide the data structures into two types. We will see which are those two types. So under non-primitive data structure, we have two types. One is linear data structure and another one is non-linear data structure. So again under linear data structures, we have arrays, stacks, queues, linked list. Under non-linear data structures, we have trees and graphs. So why we will call them as a linear data data structures and non-linear data structure. So we can see the representation of linear data structure. When I say it is a linear, where the data elements or data items are stored in a linear fashion, one after the other in a sequential manner. So which makes us to retrieve the data very easily. So arrays will be arranged in a linear fashion, one after the other. So you can see the example of array, how the data has been stored in a linear fashion. So you can observe in one more thing here, why it is called as linear data structure. Every element in an array is having one predecessor and one successor. That is minimum of one predecessor and one successor. So there is one exceptional case where you can see for the element, that is the first element, we don't have a predecessor, we only have a successor. For the last element you can see we do not have the successor but we only have the predecessor. So the meaning is here the elements in the linear data structures will have minimum of one predecessor and one successor, and there is an exceptional case in case of the first element and the last element where they will be having either one predecessor or one successor. So next is our after arrays, you can see the stack. In stack also the data is arranged in a one after the other fashion, that is in a linear fashion. Here also it follows the same exceptional thing for the predecessor and the successor. In the queue is also it is stored in a sequential manner, one after the other. In a linked list also the data is stored in a sequential manner. Hence we will call it as a linear data structure. Then what is then with the non-linear data structure? So non-linear data structure, by the name itself non-linear, we can say it is not in a sequential manner. It is not in a, the data is not stored one after the other. Then we will see the example. So under non-linear we have trees and graphs. So trees, you can see a tree structure where you can, by seeing this tree structure, for example, you can see there is a one node which has two successors, that is this node and another node is this. So again for the next node you have one predecessor and there are two successors. So here the requirement which we learned for the linear data structure has been violated. That is, we should have minimum of one predecessor and one successor, but whereas in trees we have more than one predecessor and more than one successor. Hence the data is not arranged in a linear fashion, hence we call it as a non-linear data structure. Another non-linear data structure is a graph. So here also you can see this is a graph where all the nodes are connected by the edges. So even I can say this is not in a linear fashion. This graph is also not a linear fashion. It has more than one predecessor and one successor. So we can say graph comes under the non-linear data structure. So this is about the types of data structure. Thank you.